J. Jermaine Bay, Melodian Moorish Pradium, Monte, Colorado. The acronym is AMPAC, and the Chief Judge of Council Court. Today is Class 140. Class 140. What do we learn in Class 139? Well, the bottom line is we're learning the truth, right? We're learning the truth about what? Law and history, right? Understanding that law and history goes together, right? So, in understanding the truth, sometimes we have to understand that the truth can be messy, right? When the truth is messy, it is very difficult to swallow that reality, that the reality, unfortunately, in history, is that we as a people, as Moors, never truly understood how we ended up becoming Americans or Indians. We never understood our original nationalities being Moroccans, right? So at the end of the day, what we're starting to learn in Class 139 is that we have to understand that we've been naturalized, right? What does naturalized mean? It means we've been adopted, right? Now, in Class 139, I was showing all the Moors about how the Sultan of Morocco approved and confirmed and signed bilateral treaties and multilateral treaties with the European states, right? And in those bilateral and multilateral treaties, what we're starting to learn is that when the Sultan signed these treaties, he had a purpose as to why the sultans were doing. Keep in mind, you had several sultans over the decades, right? It wasn't just the same sultan, obviously. But yeah, several sultans over several dynasties, etc. And the question is, okay, well, why did the Sultan allow the Europeans to naturalize us, right? This is what we'll talk about today, because I don't want to leave the Moors short, because, you know, one of the Moors asked me, well, it looks like the Sultan threw us under the bus. And my answer to that is, yes, it looks like the Sultan threw us under the bus, but we'll talk about the fact that that's not the reality. The Sultans did not throw the Moors underneath the bus. We have to talk about a little bit more law and history today, okay? So in Class 139, what we're really starting to understand is, okay, we got to study law and history. What about law? We got to start studying treaties, because treaties is where you're going to find the truth about who we are and what's the obligations of what we were supposed to do as a people. And at the same time, we're learning, okay, who's governing over us as a people, right? So if we're Moroccans, then who governs over Moroccans? Well, that's the Moroccan government. If we've been adopted as Americans, then who governs over us? It's the American government. If we've been adopted as Cherokee Indians, then who governs over us? That would be the Indian chiefs of the Cherokee tribes, you see? So the best case scenario is for the Moors to return to the Empire of Morocco and emerge as a sovereign independent state in order to bring the Empire of Morocco back online, right? As a sovereign independent state. But what type of state? External parent state. But it's also an international external parent state. We'll talk about that today, all right? So what the Moors have to take away from Class 139 is this. It's about the truth. We have to tell the truth to one another. We have to understand that we have simply just been miseducated, right? We've been misled and misinformed, right? And so now that we're starting to learn the truth, because we're reading treaties out loud, because treaties are pre-law land. Now that we're reading treaties out loud and we're starting to understand the history of how these treaties came to be, now we're being able to enforce the treaties, because now we're finding out that we have the absolute sovereignty of jurisdiction over all other states in the Empire of Morocco. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into class. But I want to make sure the Moors understand a little bit more about what happened in history regarding the Sultan and the European states. So as the Moors know, I always open up the Constitution. The Constitution is paramount. As an example, this is AMPAC's Constitution, right? All the Moroccan states will have their own constitutions in each of their territories, right? So in each of the territories, such as AMPAC's Constitution is a provincial government within the greater Empire of Morocco. Therefore, AMPAC's Constitution represents an internal state. It's internal, it's within, it comes under the umbrella of the Empire of Morocco state, right? So it's internal, it's inside of, right? It's enclosed, right? In the Empire of Morocco. So AMPAC, along with other Moroccan states, will come under the jurisdiction of the Empire of Morocco. We'll talk about that some more today. So therefore, AMPAC's territory, AMPAC state, as an example, is an internal state of the Empire of Morocco. All right? We'll talk about that some more today. All right? Now, in class 139, I was talking about the most favored nation clause, okay? And what I want to do today is I want to show the Moors the most favored nation clause in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right? Because in the last class I kept saying it was Article 17 and 24, and it's actually Articles 14 and 24, all right? So I want to correct the record. To all the Moors, the most favored nation clause in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1787 and 1836 is Articles 14 and 24. All right, let's go over that real quick. All right, okay. Let's go on down to Article 14. So, in Article 14 is going to talk about the most favored nation clause. Let's go ahead and read over that, okay? Okay, Brother Dre from the top.
Article 14, the commerce with the United States shall be on the same footing as is the commerce with Spain, or as that with the most favored nation for the time being. And the citizens shall be respected and esteemed, and have full liberty to pass and repass our country and seaports whenever they please without interruption.
All right, Moore. So in Article 15, you got to really pay attention to what's happening with the history. This right here, what we're reading is 1836, okay? There's a Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836, all right? Article 14, the commerce with the United States shall be on the same footing as in the commerce with Spain, or as that with the most favored nation for the time being. And their citizens shall be respected and esteemed and have full liberty to pass and repass our country. What's the country? Morocco, Empire Morocco, and seaports of the Empire Morocco whenever they please without interruption. What's important here? See, Article 14 mentioned Spain. But it's also a bilateral treaty with who? The United States of America. So it's a bilateral treaty with the United States of America, right? It says United States, right? So United States of America. Then it mentions Spain, another European state. Then it mentions what? As that with the most favored nation for the time being. So the most favored nation clause means that the United States, Spain, France, Great Britain, and all other European states all have to be treated equally under the most favored nation clause. So if this happened in 1836, and you see the word Spain, this is why in class 139 I was saying, okay, the Sultan signed bilateral treaties with France and Spain and Great Britain and other powers, i.e. Christian powers, or what? European powers. So even in 1836, Spain is being mentioned. Right? So now you come down to Article 24 on the most favored nation clause. So Article 24 is also another clause that talks about the most favored nation clause, okay? So from the top, Article 24.
Article 24. If any differences shall arise by either party infringing on any of the articles of this treaty, peace and harmony shall remain notwithstanding in the fullest force until a friendly application shall be made for an arrangement, and until that application shall be rejected, no appeal shall be made to arms. And if a war shall break out between the parties, 9 months shall be granted to all the subjects of both parties to dispose of their effects and retire with their property. And it is further declared that whatever indulgence in trade or otherwise shall be granted to any of the Christian powers, the citizens of the United States shall be equally entitled to them.
All right. So, as you can see in Article 24, the Sultan turns around and says in this last paragraph, and it is further declared that whatever indulgence in trade or otherwise, that's a very generic word, or otherwise, shall be granted to any of the Christian powers, the citizens of the United States shall be equally entitled to them. So the United States was equally entitled to anything the Sultan signed with any of the Christian powers. So in this same treaty of 1836, they already mentioned Spain, but keep it in mind, the Sultan was signing bilateral treaties with all the European states. So therefore, what happened in the 1860s was that when the Sultan was signing treaties with the European states regarding what? Naturalizing the Moors, the United States automatically had a privilege to naturalize the Moors as well, because the Sultan was allowing all of the other European states, i.e. the Christian powers, to naturalize Moors in each of the territories across the world. You see? And this is the Moors got to take away. So when Moors say, well, there's no need for the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, well, that's a misconcept. Why? Because the Sultan was recognizing the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Also, the Sultan was recognizing any naturalized status of the Moors in any of the European states. So this is what Moors got to understand, right? Under the Most Favored Nation Clause, the United States had a right and a privilege to naturalize the Moors because the Sultan was allowing that to take place. Now today, what we'll do is we'll talk further. Okay, the Moors like, okay, well, why would the Sultan let the Moors be naturalized? Right? It appears as though he threw us under the bus, but not really. Okay, so what the Moors have to understand is that the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco, right? The Sultan of the Empire of Morocco was already signing treaties with all European states. And what Moors have to understand is this. In 1834, Great Britain abolished slavery. So Great Britain abolished slavery through their parliament. Listen to me. Great Britain abolished slavery through their parliament. What does that mean? They passed an act to abolish slavery through their parliament. So it became a legislative act that was signed into law. It just wasn't just an executive order. It was law. 1834. So the United States of America turns around and renews their treaty in 1836. But by Great Britain abolishing slavery and notifying the Sultan that slavery has been abolished, guess who started to follow suit? All the other European states. All the European states after 1834 started to abolish slavery. So in 1836, when the United States of America renewed their treaty with the Sultan, the United States of America knew that Great Britain had abolished slavery in 1834, just 2 years apart. That set off a chain reaction amongst all European states that they too should follow suit to abolish slavery. Slavery of who? Moors. So what happened is when the Moors now were in a status where they were being freed, they would call them the freedmen, right? Once they were freed, what happened next? Now the European states are like, okay, Sultan, now that we freed these Moors, they're no longer in a slavery status. What do we do now? Because the treaties say these Moors have a right to do what? In any dispute, right? In any dispute, right? Let's go back to the treaty. All right, so in Article 20, what does it say? This is talking about the Empire of Morocco, right, and the United States of America. But keep in mind, all the European states had similar language in their treaties. All right? So Article 20.
Article 20. If any of the citizens of the United States or any persons under their protection shall have any dispute with each other, the consul shall decide between the parties, and whenever the consul shall require any aid or assistance from our government to enforce his decisions, it shall be immediately granted to him.
All right. So therefore, in 1836, the Moors, if the Moors had any disputes with the United States citizens, they were supposed to be using consul, right? Consular court. Meaning they had to petition. If Moors had a problem with United States citizens, they were supposed to petition Morocco. But since the Moors didn't have their Moorish governments up and going all over the empire, because keep in mind, the Moors had been run out of government all throughout Europe. All the Moors were royalty They were the kings and queens running all the governments all throughout Europe, all throughout the world, the Moors. They got ran out of their offices by the Europeans, right? Then later on, they started getting into partnerships with the Arabs, etc. So the Moors started losing their offices everywhere through colonialism, etc. Right? So getting back to the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836, the Moors had a right to petition the Empire of Morocco if they had a dispute. Right? So let's go to Article 21. Okay, I'm listening.
Article 21. If the citizens of the United States should kill or wound a Moor, or on the contrary, if a Moor shall kill or wound a citizen of the United States, the law of the country shall take place, and equal justice shall be rendered. The consul assisting at the trial, and if any delinquent shall make his escape, the consul shall not be answerable for him in any manner whatever.
So, Article 21, if any citizen of the United States should kill or wound a Moor, or, on the contrary, if a Moor shall kill or wound a citizen of the United States, the law of the country shall take place, and equal justice shall be rendered. The consul assisting at the trial, and if any delinquent shall make his escape, the consul shall not be answerable for him in any manner whatsoever. So what's happening? So consular court should have been involved with dealing with Moors and who have disputes with the United States of America, the consul. Well, what does consul mean? So that's an international word. Anytime you see the word consul, the word consul is an international word, right? So right here it says the consul. You see that word consul? The word consul is an international word. That's not a local word. When you're talking consul, you're talking consular court, and you're talking consular representatives on the highest level of international law. That's not a domestic word. Domestically, they're attorneys. Internationally, they're consul. Right? So it becomes an international dispute. An international court should be dealing with disputes between Moors and citizens of the United States of America. So what happened is, after Great Britain abolished slavery in 1834, and the United States of America decided to go ahead and renew the Treaty of 1836, and what happened is the Empire of Morocco and the Sultan, along with all the European states, said, okay, now that the Moors are no longer going to be slaves, right? What's going to be their new status? Are they going to now proclaim themselves as Moroccans again? Because they was always Moroccans. They didn't know because they were being removed of knowledge of self. Now that they've been free, what do you do now? Either they're going to be stateless, or you're going to remind them that they're what? Moors, i.e. Moroccans. So they didn't want to remind the Moors of who they actually were. So they said what to the Sultan? Sultan, can we naturalize them? Now can we take them from what? A slave status down here and move them up to citizen status? This is what they're negotiating with the Sultan. So the Sultan said, look, our European states, no longer should you have the Moors in a slave status. You European states need to now put the Moors in a citizen status. That's an upgrade from slave to citizen. So when the Moors say, well, did the Sultan throw us under the bus to make us citizens of the European states? The answer is no. It was an upgrade from slave, indentured servants, up to being citizens to come under the protections of European states. All right? Now, listen. This is why the 1880 treaty, right, that's what I got up here, the 1880 Madrid Convention of 1880, is about a right of protections in Morocco. So the Sultan in 1880, right, is setting forth a treaty that says a right of protection. Who are they protecting? Moors. To make them what? Citizens, right, of the European states. So they go from slave or indentured servants up to being citizens. That's an upgrade, right? So that's what the Moors got to understand. First and foremost, right of protections in Morocco. Well, what about Morocco? The Empire of Morocco was a right of protection to protect the Moors by making them what? Citizens. You see? It was an upgrade from slavery. You see? They called them freedmen. Instead of calling them freedmen, which was a generic word, because they didn't want to call them Moors or Moroccans, they didn't want to remind Dred Scott that he was a Moor or Moroccan. They called them freedmen or Negro. So now the right of protection to protect them, make them citizens. I'm gonna build the Moors up. We're building up. Okay, we're building up. All right? Okay. Now, keep in mind. Okay, Moors, pay attention. Be patient with me. I'm gonna build you up. I'll get there. Just gotta be patient with me. First, we gotta talk about the Empire of Morocco, right, in the Sultan, right? Why did he allow the Moors to be naturalized? Why did the Sultan allow the Moors to be naturalized in the Empire of Morocco, all throughout the Empire of Morocco? Why is that? We're talking about that today, okay? All right? Listen, first of all, we got to remind ourselves, the word Morocco in etymology dictionary means what? Okay, Morocco is a noun, okay? Remember, Morocco, okay? Morocco was about Moroccans, right? Morocco, Moroccans, but it's also about who? Moors. Etymology dictionary, the word Moor, right? So Moor, right? That's an abbreviation of Morocco and Moroccans, but it's the Empire of Morocco. And the Moors, so you got M-O-R for Moroccan, right? And you got M-O-R for Moor, you see? So Moor is an abbreviation of Moroccans, the natural inhabitants of the land. All right, so why would the Sultan of Morocco, why would the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco allow the Moors to be naturalized? We got to understand something. It's called the Great Enterprise. We're going to talk about that today. The Sultan was overseeing a great enterprise. That's the word of the day. The Great Enterprise. We're going to learn about that today, okay? All right, I got to build the Moors up first, okay? All right, listen, Moors. All right. In 1906, the Sultan signed a treaty of the Act of Algeciras of 1906 that did what? It put the Moors went from being slaves to naturalized citizens of the United States of America and all European states, and what happened in 1906? Also now, the Sultan said, no, put these Moors back in the sovereign position to help me as the Sultan to oversee the great enterprise commonly known as the Empire of Morocco. Okay? So in 1906, even after go back to 1880. So in 1880, right, we learned in class 139 that the Moors were naturalized. Right? So you go down to what? Article 15. So Article 15 says, any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, should choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. So in 1880, the Moors were still naturalized, and the Sultan agreed to it. But then you look up, 26 years later, listen to me, 26 years later, in 1906, the Sultan turned around and said, you know what? You Europeans are out of control. Africa's out of control. You're over here colonizing Africa. You're colonizing the entire Empire of Morocco. Let me reign in the order. And the only way the Sultan could reign in the order, who do you think he had to put back in charge of the land again? The Moors. So just 26 years after he agreed to naturalize the Moors, to make them citizens of all European states, he turned around and said, you know what? These Moors now can get back into their rightful position to be successors to run the Moorish government of the Empire of Morocco. So now you come down and you quickly realize that in Article 1, it talks about the Sultan reigning in the order, and it goes right into the Moorish government. From the top here, brother. Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Declaration relative to the organization of the police. Article 1. conference summoned by His Majesty the Sultan to pronounce on the measures necessary to organize the police declares that the following provisions should be made.
Paul, so the Sultan is saying, I'm declaring for who's going to be the police over the Empire of Morocco, right? That's Article 2. I'm listening.
Article 2. The police shall be under the sovereign authority of His Majesty the Sultan. It shall be recruited by the Makhzen from Moorish Mohammedans, commanded by Moorish Cades, and distributed in the 8 ports open to commerce.
So therefore, now the Sultan's putting the Moors back in charge again. You see that? So first, the Moors went from being slaves, then the Europeans started abolishing slavery, so the Moors went from being slaves to now being citizens of the European states, and now the Sultan said, let's straighten the order, let these Moors now get back in the seats of government. You see what's happening? So the Moors are who? What's their nationality? Moroccans. You see that? Moroccans. You see that? Over here, you see what? You see Moorish. Moroccan. So the Moors are Moroccans. So the Sultan's putting the Moroccan government back in charge of the Empire of Morocco. You see that? That's the reason why when you go back to the etymology dictionary, how are they defining Moor? They define Moor as what? Of Morocco and Moroccan. You see that? And they also talk about what? The extreme west. What's the extreme west? Over here in the western continent of the Empire of Morocco. You see? So when the Moors say, well, did the Sultan throw us under the bus? No. What did the Sultan do? Once the European states abolished slavery, then they say, okay, what will we do next? The Sultan says, let's naturalize the Moors, let them come under the protection of European states. And then the Sultan turned around and said, in 1906, let's put the Moors in charge of the European states. However, listen up. Why did the Sultan in the first place allow the Europeans to naturalize the Moors? This is the question. All the Moors want to know, why did the Sultan let the Europeans naturalize us? We'll talk about that today, okay? All right, so here we go. All right, now Moors, you got to go back to the Act of Algeciras of 1906, okay? Act of Algeciras 1906, that's what I got on the screen. You have to come down now to Article 106. 106. Article 106 will tell you something. It's going to give you a clue of what's going on, why the Sultan did what he did to let the Moors be naturalized. Okay, from the top, brother. Article 106.
Article 106. In case the Sharifian government should invoke the aid of foreign capital or foreign industry for the working of public services or for the operation of public works, roads, railways, ports, telegraphs, and other public works, the signatory powers reserve to themselves the right to see it that the authority of the state over these great enterprises of general interest remains entire.
All right, so what's happening? Article 106, let's read it again. It's a very important article. Article 106, in case the Sharifian government, right, that's the Moorish government, that's the Sultan's government, should invoke the aid of foreign capital or foreign industry for the working of public services or for the operation of public works, roads, railways, ports, telegraphs, and other public works, the signatory powers, which is Europeans, reserve to themselves the right to see it that the authority of the state over these great enterprises of the general interest remains entire. So what's happening here? See, the Sultan and the European states, the 12 European states who signed this treaty in 1906, we're talking about the great enterprise. What is the great enterprise they're talking about? That's all the European states in Morocco, such as the United States of America, right? Canada, Great Britain, Wales, Ireland, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, Netherlands, Russia, you name it. The great enterprise is all the commercial activity that all the Europeans had going on between themselves. And the Sultan was overseeing all of that. So the great enterprise is all of the European states and all the trade they're doing, and they're supposed to break off a percentage to the Empire of Morocco. All right, so it's all about the Sharifian government, right? The Sharifian government is overseeing the great enterprise of the Empire of Morocco. Let's talk about the empire, right? Let me give you a visual. All right, Moors. All right, follow me. So, as you can see, the Sultan at the time of 1906 was sitting here, okay? At Fez, Rabat, right, etc. All right, he's sitting here at the capital, overseeing what? The great enterprise of Morocco and all the European states, right? So all these European states that you see up here are all a part of the Empire of Morocco, all the way over to Russia, right? You got Russia all the way to the tip of Russia, on back towards the Atlantic Ocean is the Empire of Morocco. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the names that signed the treaty. But also in the extreme west, listen, follow me. In the extreme west, right, got Iceland, Greenland, right? But over here you got what? United States, Canada, etc. This is part of the extreme west of the empire. These are all signatory powers on the Act of Algeciras, as well as signatory powers on the Treaty of Madrid of 1880. All right, we're going to talk about that. So how do we quantify where the empire is? It's based upon the signatures, etc., on the treaties. Okay, listen, this will make sense to you. Why did the Sultan allow the Moors to be naturalized? Okay, now what the Moors have to understand is that if the Sultan was sitting in Morocco and the Sultan was trying to govern over the empire, think about it. If the Sultan, one man, okay, let's take it to the board. Let me break down this board for the Moors real quick, all right? It's going to make sense to the Moors, okay? What does it say at the top? It says, Seniority of Sovereignty and Jurisdiction. That's the title of the great enterprise. We're talking great enterprise. It's the Empire of Morocco, right, on a large scale. The empire, right? Then we're going to narrow it down to its lowest common denominator of sovereignty and jurisdiction. Seniority, sovereignty, and jurisdiction. So it's wide empire. Then we'll narrow it down to seniority, okay? So what's first? First, what's the first state in law? In the treaty, it's the Empire of Morocco. That's the first state, right? But what is the Empire of Morocco? It is what? It's an international sovereign state. That's what the empire is. But it's considered to be an external. See that word right there? External, international sovereign state. Why is it an international sovereign state? It's because it crosses over what? It crosses over what? The 7 continents, right? There's 7 continents, right? What are the 7 continents? What do you got? You got what? North America, South America, Antarctica, right? You got Europe, right? You got Asia, you got Australia, and you have who else? Africa. That's 7 continents, okay? And the Empire of Morocco crosses over the 7 seas. It goes over to the west, the extreme west, way over here, right? United States, Canada, right? You got Greenland, Iceland. You got all the European states, okay? Asia, which Russia is a part of Asia. Then you got what? You got Africa itself, Morocco. That's another continent, right? Where else you got? You got Australia, right? That's a continent. Australia's a continent, okay? Now listen, India. You see India? India is one of the signatory powers on the Act of Algeciras. Follow me. So the empire consists of at least 4 or 5 continents. Which continent you got? You got what? The modern name, Americas, right? There's America, that's one continent. Then you got what? Europe, that's the second continent, right? Then you got what? Asia, so Russia and India are part of Asia, right? That's a continent, right? You got Africa, because you got Morocco itself, right? So that's 4. You also got what? Australia. Australia is considered a continent, one of the 7 continents. Mm-hmm. And Australia is the Commonwealth of Great Britain, etc. So you got at least 3 or 4 continents right there that talks about the Empire of Morocco. But if you're only talking signatory powers on the Act of Algeciras of 1906, India was on there, but that's part of Asia. That's a continent. Russia signed it, but Russia was the USSR. We'll talk about that today. Russia was the USSR that encompassed half of Europe. So Europe is a continent. So all the European states of Europe, right? And like I said, then you come to the far west. Okay? So therefore, the Empire of Morocco is an external, international, sovereign state because it crosses over continents. You see? So therefore, it's an international sovereign state. You see that? I'm saying it again. The Empire of Morocco crosses over continents and seas. Therefore, it's an external, international sovereign state. So number 2 is who? For an example, we're talking one of the signatory powers on the Act of Algeciras. We'll talk about that, the signatures on the Act of Algeciras. But one of the signatory powers, the Christian powers, was the United States of America in 1906 and 1880, Treaty of Madrid. But what is the United States of America? It is what you call what? A regional state in Morocco. So the United States of America is a regional state in Morocco, right? What makes it regional? Because it's stuck in this region right here. That's it. You see? So this is what you call a region. United States is not international because the United States is stuck in a region as a state. So it's a regional state and not an international state. You follow me? Mm-hmm. However, is it external? Is it an external state? Yes. Why? Because the United States of America is a free association with the independent state commonly known as the Empire of Morocco. The Sultans recognized the European states to be in a free association to get into trade and commerce with other European states on planet Earth. So therefore, the Sultan allowed them to be an external state. That way they can be recognized to do business with other external states. So they are external. However, the Empire of Morocco is an external international sovereign state that has jurisdiction, that has seniority and sovereign jurisdiction over the United States of America, because the United States of America is located where geographically? In Morocco. See that? In Morocco. So another example is, okay, so United States of America, all right, now let's drop down here. Let's drop down here. Number 3. Third, we're talking jurisdiction. We're talking seniority of sovereignty and jurisdiction. Okay? Who's third? As an example, underneath the United States of America and the United States, right, federal corporation, who's underneath them? The state of Colorado. As an example, the state of Colorado is what you call an internal state of who? Of who? Of the United States. So state of Colorado is an internal state. It comes under the umbrella of who? The United States Federal Corporation. And the United States Federal Corporation comes under the umbrella of who? The United States of America as the regional external state. You see that? Mm-hmm. But who has jurisdiction over the United States of America? The Empire of Morocco. Who has jurisdiction over the United States of America? The Empire of Morocco. That's first. Talking seniority of sovereignty and jurisdiction. So the Empire of Morocco has jurisdiction over the United States of America. The Empire of Morocco has jurisdiction over the United States Federal Corporation. And the Empire of Morocco has jurisdiction over the state of Colorado as an internal state of the United States Federal Corporation. The United States Federal Corporation acts on behalf of the United States of America. So everything the United States does, they do it on behalf of the United States of America. As an intergovernmental organization. You see? All right, well, who's fourth? Okay, fourth is who? Okay, as an example, state of Colorado has underneath who? It has what? Governors, right? A governor, right? Underneath the governor is who? A mayor, right? And underneath the mayor is who? Head of districts. All right? And who's last? Indians. Indian reservations are last. All right? So let's go to the top again, because I got to help the Moors understand, why did the Sultan allow the Europeans to naturalize us? It's because he was looking out for the great enterprise, and the Moors were all over the Empire of Morocco, all over it, all over the world, and the Moors wasn't governing like they were supposed to. So the Europeans and the Arabs, etc., had taken over our governments all over planet Earth, right, under colonialism. Under colonialism, we got ran out of governments all over the place. Europeans took over. So now in the great enterprise, the Sultan says, okay, these Europeans have taken over the territories, but the Sultan still wanted to collect what? Taxes. So since the Sultan wanted to collect taxes, he put the European states, right? European states in charge of the territories and called it the great enterprise. And the Sultan said from here, he said from the seat, the capital of Morocco, the Empire of Morocco, that's the capital at the time of 1906, that is. He let the Europeans oversee the territories so that they could collect the taxes and send it back to the Sultan of Morocco, since the Moors wasn't doing their job to collect taxes and run the governments. Keep in mind, Putin just recently opened a vault to show, quote unquote, black Jesus. There's no such thing as a black Jesus, because notice Putin never said the nationality. He just gave it a crayon color. Yeah. However, Russia is located where? In Morocco. Mm-hmm. Therefore, if he opened a vote to show copper-colored people on paintings, who did he show the paintings of? Moroccans, i.e. Moors. Not black people. Black is an adjective. Now tell me the nationality, Putin. But Putin knows he's in Morocco. He knows about the Moorish treaties, right? So let's continue. So let's take it from the top. Why did the Sultan allow the Europeans to naturalize the Moors? It's because of this right here. The Sultan said, okay, I'm going to let the United States of America naturalize the Moors, so the United States of America can, what? Oversee, govern over this territory and collect what? Taxes. And send the taxes back to where? Empire of Morocco, to the Sultan. You see? To the Sultan. Because the Moors wasn't collecting taxes. So when the Sultan allowed the European states to naturalize the Moors, to make them citizens, the United States of America, as an example, was given permission to naturalize the Moors, made the Moors citizens, and the United States just started collecting taxes on everybody, including Moors, who are now deemed what? American citizens. So now the Sultan's collecting taxes on everybody. It's called the Great Enterprise. And what does enterprise mean? That's doing business as an enterprise, a state-owned business. I'll say it again. State-owned business. So the Sultan owns all of the European states. The Sultan owns all the European states. So it's state-owned businesses that the Sultan owns all of these European states according to treaties. Right? Let's go back to Treaty of Madrid of 1880. All right, Treaty of Madrid 1880, Article 7. Article 7. All right, let's remind the Moors who owns all the states. Okay, from the top here, Brother Drake.
Article 7. Foreign representatives shall inform the Sultan's Minister of Foreign Affairs in writing of any selections of an employee made by them. They shall furnish annually to the said minister a list of the names of the persons protected by them or by their agents throughout the states of the Sultan of Morocco.
Pause, read it again.
They shall furnish annually to the said minister a list of the names of the persons protected by them or by their agents throughout the states of the Sultan of Morocco.
So therefore, all the states, plural, right? All the states, plural, all the European states, right, belong to the Sultan of Morocco. So it says throughout the states, the empire is a what? Empire is what? Something that has inside of it what? Several states and countries. That's what an empire is. So throughout the empire, all the states, European states, belong to who? The Sultan of Morocco under the Great Enterprise. This is 1880. So going back to the map. So all these states have agreed through the treaty, that was the Treaty of Madrid, the Europeans signed, that their states belong to the Sultan of Morocco because this is the empire of Morocco. Where else is the empire of Morocco? Okay, India also signed it. India signed the Act of Algeciras of 1906. Okay, we'll talk about that. So, listen up more. How did you expect the Sultan, who's one man trying to govern over an international state that encompasses all these European states, right? All these European states, and he wasn't getting help from the Moors to collect the taxes. So since he wasn't getting help from the Moors, he let the Europeans naturalize the Moors to make the Moors citizens, and then he allowed the Europeans on the Great Enterprise to start making trade and commerce to make money to send back to the Sultan of Morocco. But at least the Moors now will be treated with what? So-called equal citizenship. So-called. You got to understand what's happening here, because all the states belong to the Sultan. Okay, speaking of states, let's take a look at this. Okay, first let's look at the signatory powers, okay? Let's look at the signatory powers of the Treaty of Madrid as a refresher. This is important, Morris. Please take notes. You know I don't always tell you to take notes. Matter of fact, I never say it. But today I'm going to tell you to take notes. Write this down. Who's the signatory power on the multilateral Treaty of Madrid of 1880? It is who? It is the United States, Germany, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Spain, France. Who else? United Kingdom and for Denmark. Italy, Morocco, Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden and Norway. Sweden and Norway. These are European states. All right, take note. Okay, let's go to the 1906 Act of Algeciras. Let's look at this treaty. Write this down. We're going to go through this. Signatory powers. Who are the signatory powers of the Act of Algeciras? Okay, it is who? Germany, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Spain, the United States of America, France, Great Britain, Italy, Morocco, Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, but it's not Russia. 1906 is what? USSR. We're going to talk about the USSR because you need to see all the 15 states. 15 states were a part of the USSRs, right? And then Sweden. Okay? Hopefully Morris wrote that list down because you need to go back. You're going to need to go back and look at it, okay? So these are the European states that signed it, okay? Listen. Let's go back up to the top. Okay, who was there in 1906? Here's all the people who was in attendance in 1906. Okay, Brother Dre from the top.
In the name of Almighty God, His Majesty the Emperor of Germany, King of Prussia, in the name of the German Empire, His Majesty the Emperor of Austria, King of Bohemia, etc., and Apostolic King of Hungary, His Majesty the King of the Belgians, His Majesty the King of Spain, the President of the United States of America, the President of the French Republic, His Majesty the King of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and of the British dominions beyond the seas, Emperor of India, etc., His Majesty the King of Italy, His Majesty the Sultan of Morocco, Her Majesty the Queen of the Netherlands, His Majesty the King of Portugal, and of the Algars, etc., etc., etc. His Majesty the Emperor of all the Russias, His Majesty the King of Sweden.
Pause. So therefore, India was there as well. You see, I just want to point that out, right? So the Emperor of India, etc., was there as well. Okay? So down here, look what it says. It says, and his Emperor, His Majesty, the Emperor of all. See the word all the Russias. Well, what the heck is all the Russias? Right? What they should have said is what? The USSR. That's very important to understand. All right, let's look into that. Right, so let's first look at the map. Okay, so you see Russia, right? There's Russia. Russia's very big. Okay? But Russia looks like it borders to what? It looks like it borders to Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, right? Down here you got Georgia, right? You got Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, right? Etc. Okay? So Russia, it looks like Russia's in the pink. However, under the USSR, all this over here, all these states right here, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Belarus, Ukraine, Romania, all of this was a part of the USSR, including coming down here in the green. See the green? All this was USSR, okay? Going down here around the border, okay? So watch this. We got to talk about this. All right. So in 1906, when the Act of Algeciras was signed, this is what the map looked like. It says Russia, but it should say USSR. You see what the map is now? So in 1906, USSR was on the border of Finland, right? That was Finland. Okay, this will make sense to you. There's Poland. It was on the border of Poland, right? A Hungarian Empire, right? It came on down, okay? So now, it also came far west. Okay, we'll talk about that. So this is 1906. So Russia, really USSR, was basically taking over half of all of Europe. Okay, let's go back to the map. So you see how it looks now? Russia, that big pink. But it also encompassed what? All this too, all this over here, all this territory was part of USSR too, etc. So over here, where the pink and Russia come down here in the green, that was USSR. All this was USSR. Why am I saying this? Because all this was what? The Empire of Morocco. All these states are recognizing that they're in the Empire of Morocco. You see? They're recognizing that the Sultan's reigning in the order to let the Moors oversee these territories. This is why Russia is letting everybody know the paintings he took out were copper-colored people, i.e. what? Moors. You see? So listen. Countries in the USSR. This will make sense, y'all. I'm going through this for a reason, Moors. You got to understand who was all in the Empire of Morocco. Okay, from the top.
Countries in the USSR. Of the 15 constituent republics of the USSR, 3 of these countries declared and were granted independence a few months preceding the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. The remaining 12 did not become independent until the USSR fell completely on December 26, 1991.
So after 1991, you have 15, right? So it says, I'll read it again, countries in the USSR, of the 15 constituent republics. So it was 15 republics in the USSR, 15. 3 of these countries declared and were granted independence a few months preceding the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. The remaining 12 did not become independent until the USSR fell completely on December 26, 1991. So who were the 15 states inside of the USSR? So it was Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, right? So Russia was just one of the 15 states. You see? Russia was just one of the 15 states within the USSR. Okay? Okay, so these states, going back to the map, this is important. Going back to the map. So those names you saw on the list are to the far left, right? Estonia, right over here. All of these were part of the USSR. You see? All this was part of the Kazakhstan, right? All this was part of the USSR, but now they're individual states on planet Earth. Independent states, okay? Well, why am I talking about that? Okay, so when you go back to the Act of Algeciras of 1906, and it says, okay, well, who signed the treaty, right? Recognizing the Sultan as his majesty, right? It says, His Majesty, the Emperor of all the Russias. So all those 15 states also were obligated to recognize they were in Morocco and the Sultan had jurisdiction over all of Europe. You see? All right, so all the Moors should have wrote the list of states down, okay? So when you look at a world map, now you see that all these states, Italy, Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, right, United Kingdom, Denmark, Sweden, look, way up here, Norway, Sweden. Now they're 2 separate states, but look what happened in 1906. In 1906, it was Sweden, Norway. You see that? It was one territory, right? This says Finland right here. That's Finland. So you go back to the map of current day. So now it's Norway and Sweden, okay? But all these are signatory powers on the Act of Algeciras, as well as the Treaty of Madrid. Why are we going through this? Listen, how, since the Moors, because Russia just showed the Moors images on photos, on paintings, right? Mm-hmm. Dark-skinned people. Putin let you know these Moors was running Europe. They were the royalty. But they got what? Ran out of office. So now the Sultan has to say, okay, how am I going to collect my money from everybody if the Moors aren't in office anymore? So the Sultan turns around and does what? He puts the European states in charge of the territories, right? He puts them in charge of the territories all over Europe, right? And also in the extreme west, right? Extreme west, okay? He puts them in charge of the territories. So that way the Sultan could make sure he could collect his taxes in the great enterprise, which is Article 106 of the Act of Algeciras. Right? Because all the states belong to the Sultan according to the Treaty of Madrid, Article 7, Section 2. So when the Sultan allowed the Moors to be naturalized, it was only to put the Moors in what? A little bit of what? A little bit of what's commonly known as, going back to the Treaty of Madrid, is about what? A right of protections in Morocco. What about Morocco? The empire of Morocco, the Sultan allowed the Moors, the subjects, right, the subjects of Morocco to be naturalized, to take them from slave status up to citizen status. That way that they have some protections as citizens. And then the Sultan was expecting the European states, going back to the map, to pay taxes, right, to who? The Sultan of Morocco. And this is why the Sultan put all the Europeans in charge, because the Moors wasn't running the governments. All right? Now, guess what happens in 1906? Now we fast forward to 1906, after 1880, and what happens next? Okay, let's read the preamble. All right, Drake from the top.
Inspired by the interest attaching itself to the reign of order, peace, and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms based upon the triple principle of the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, the integrity of his domains, and economic liberty without any inequality, have resolved upon the invitation of His Sharifian Majesty to call together a conference at Algeciras for the purpose of arriving at an understanding upon the said reforms, as well as examining the means for obtaining the resources necessary for their application, and have appointed as their delegates plenipotentiary the following.
All right, so therefore the Sultan and everybody who signed the treaty and was there in 1906, right, are acknowledging that the Sultan is reigning in the order of what? The triple principle of the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, the integrity of his domains. What domains? The Empire of Morocco. And the economic liberty without any inequality. See that? So he's reigning in the order of the triple principle of his domains. What is his domains? Let's look at the world map. His domains from the capital of Morocco, the Empire of Morocco, his domains included a part of Africa, all of Europe, right? That Europe, even all the way up to Norway and Sweden, because they signed these treaties, right? All the USSR, which is now Russia, and several other states that used to be 15 states, now they're broken up into independent states, right? Italy signed it, where the Vatican is, right? Portugal, United States, Canada, you got Greenland, Iceland. Keep in mind, Greenland is really Denmark, and Denmark, which is over here, Denmark right here in the center, right? So you got Denmark over here, right here, but Greenland is a property of Denmark, so Denmark signed these treaties too, you see, to recognize themselves as being in the Empire of Morocco, and now they're dealing with what? The great enterprise, because all the states belong to the Sultan of Morocco. You see, so it's called the great enterprise as to why the Sultan allowed the Europeans to naturalize the Moors, because the Moors wasn't running the government no more, and the Sultan couldn't collect taxes. So then the Sultan turns around and does what in 1906? After you read the preamble, what does he do next? Okay. He does what? You scroll down, and like I said, now you go to Article 1. Okay, you go to Article 1 again. Let's read it again. Chapter 1.
Chapter 1, Declaration relative to the organization of the police. Article 1, this conference summoned by His Majesty the Sultan to pronounce on the measures necessary to organize the police declares that the following provisions should be made. Article 2, the police shall be under the sovereign authority of His Majesty the Sultan. It shall be recruited by the Makhzen from Moorish Mohammedans, commanded by Moorish Cades, and distributed in the 8 ports open to commerce.
All right, now I can continue to read. This is 123 articles. I can show you everywhere it says Moorish government, right? Right? I can show you everywhere it says Moorish government. Watch this. Let's go right here. Let's read this. Article 4. I'm listening.
Article 4. These officers and non-commissioned officers for a period of 5 years to date from the ratification of the Act of the Conference shall give their service to the organization of a body of Sharifian of police. They shall assure instruction and discipline in conformity with the regulations to be drawn up in respect thereto. They shall also see that the men enlisted are fit for military service. In a general way, they shall supervise the administration of the soldiers and superintend the payment of their salary, which shall be effected by the amen, assisted by the accounting officer instructor. They shall extend to the Moorish authorities invested with the command of these bodies their technical aid in the exercise of the said command.
So therefore, it's all about the Moorish authorities. So the Moors are the authority now. So from 1880, the Sultan says, okay, I'm going to let the Europeans naturalize the Moors to make them citizens. 26 years later, 1906, the Sultan said, you know what, this isn't working. Put these Moors back in charge because you Europeans are out of control. So now the Moors have been put back into power by the Sultan of Morocco to oversee what? The great enterprise. Where's the great enterprise? Okay, now we go back to the world map. As an example, United States, right? This is the Empire of Morocco. So United States, now the Moors are supposed to govern and supervise, start to collect taxes and institute what? Moroccan laws and Moroccan regulations over the great enterprise. You see? So at the extreme west, these are territories the Moors supposed to be overseen as with our Moorish government. You see? So all of this is the great enterprise. All the European states, Moors, are now should be waking up and returning back to the Empire of Morocco to declare what? Their national status as Moroccans again, and get back into government of the Empire of Morocco as we all start to come together as states. Okay? All throughout the Empire of Morocco, we have to all wake up and create states to come under the umbrella of the Empire of Morocco. Okay? Listen. So the Empire of Morocco, right, is the external sovereign independent state, but it's an international external sovereign independent state according to the treaties. And all European states belong to the Sultan and the Empire of Morocco. So the Sultan has to be reinstated because there was no more Sultan after March 2nd, 1956. We have to reinstate what? The executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, right? And in each of the territories, listen, Moors, this is very important. In each of the territories, we need internal, right? I'm going to say the word again. We need internal Moorish state governments to oversee different territories throughout the Empire of Morocco, such as AMPAC. AMPAC, as an example, is a provincial government, right? An internal state underneath the umbrella of the Empire of Morocco to start to do what? To govern over the territory that used to be called the state of Colorado. And it's still called that. The state of Colorado, right, still exists. Why does it get to exist? Why does the state of Colorado get to exist? Why does the United States of America, as an example, still get to exist? Okay, go back to the Act of Algeciras of 1906. Now you got to go to where? Article 106. Okay, Article 106 says what? Let's read it from the top. Again, I'm listening.
Article 106. In case the Sharifian government should invoke the aid of foreign capital or foreign industry for the working of public services or for the operation of public works, roads, railways, ports, telegraphs, and other public works, the signatory powers reserve to themselves the right to see to it that the authority of the state over these great enterprises of general interest remains entire.
All right, so this has a duality meaning. Article 106 has a duality meaning. So first of all, the state. Who's the state? European state. As an example, the United States of America as a state, right, is over these great enterprises such as all the what? Internal states of the United States of America, such as the state of Colorado is what? Is a part of the great enterprise because the state of Colorado is what? A charter doing business in the Empire of Morocco. So the state of Colorado gets to exist under the United States of America. The United States of America is a part of the great enterprise. And it says right here, the great enterprise of the general interest remains entire. So the European states were trying to lock in the fact that they have a right to exist because the Sultan recognized They're states. Therefore, they get to remain entire. Who gets to remain entire? United States of America as an example. And their internal states, such as the state of Colorado, gets to exist. And it gets to remain entire to govern over who? Americans. But guess who else gets to remain entire? Guess what? The duality meaning here is what? The state. What state? The Empire of Morocco as a state also gets to remain entire in order to oversee what? The great enterprise of the Empire of Morocco and all of the European states. So it has a duality meaning that both the European states get to remain entire and all the internal states. But so does the Empire of Morocco gets to remain entire to oversee all the European states on a what? On an international level. You see? So the Europeans made sure they locked that in because they knew the Moors was waking up. And they knew the Moors was the royalty at first in all these territories. So now the Europeans say, can we remain still as what? Presidents, etc. All right? So let's talk about their offices, okay? Let's talk about their offices because we got to talk about the seniority of their offices. So I'm going to turn this board around, okay? I'm going to turn the board around and we're going to talk about it, all right? And give me 1 second. Watch this. Okay, here we go. Right? All right. So on this side of the board, what do we have? Okay, this is about what? Seniority of office, etc. Right? So the top says seniority of office. We're going to talk about the highest offices that's overseeing territories, okay? Etc. Okay, so what's the first highest office throughout the Empire of Morocco? It's what? The Sultan in the Empire of Morocco. That's the highest seniority office. Okay, who comes under the Sultan? Well, it's the Prime Minister and the Wazirs. And the Wazirs are the governors, which the Moorish government has governors overseeing each of the territories, such as AMPAC as a territory, as an example, has a Wazir overseeing the territory as a governor. So you got a Prime Minister of the Empire of Morocco, and then you got a governor that's overseeing such as AMPAC, okay? So you got the Sultan in the Empire of Morocco, that's the seniority of his office, the highest office over the great enterprise. Who's number two? All kings, queens, prime ministers, and presidents. I'm talking offices. All right? Now some people say, kings and queens is not an office, that's royalty. Okay, I give you that. That's why I said what? Etc. So a seniority of offices, right, etc. Because these right here are royalties. This is royalty. Kings and queens, such as you had Queen Elizabeth of England, right? And now there's a king sitting there, right? You also got King who? King of Morocco, Muhammad VI is a king, but he ain't a sultan. He's a king, but he's not a sultan. He's the king of his uti, posititis, jurisdiction, and that's it. Sultan has the highest status over kings in the Empire of Morocco. That must be understood, all right? So the Sultan has jurisdiction, has seniority of office, right? So the Sultan in the Empire of Morocco has a higher status than kings, queens, prime ministers, and presidents, such as the prime minister of any European state, or such as the president of any European state. All right? Who's number three in seniority? Okay, governors. Governors come under who? Come under kings and queens, right? So does prime ministers and presidents. Prime ministers and presidents come under, right? Prime ministers and presidents, all right? Both of them come under kings and queens. They come under that. But over here I got governors because the United States of America has what? The United States of America has a president. Who comes under the president? Governors. All right? So presidents oversee governors. Governors oversee mayors. Mayors oversee district heads of divisions. Okay? And then also you got tribal and village heads or chiefs. So in your Indian reservations, right, tribes and villages, you got heads such as chiefs, right? So the Sultan throughout the Empire of Morocco has seniority of office over kings, queens, prime ministers, presidents, governors, mayors, district heads of divisions, tribal and village heads, or chiefs. That's how powerful the Sultan is. Now, let me make sense of this for you. Why did the Sultan allow the European states to naturalize the Moors? It's because the Sultan needed these kings, queens, prime ministers, presidents, governors, mayors, and district heads to do what? Make sure they collect taxes and revenue. So down here, these districts who work within what? Counties and cities. You got districts. All counties are broken into what? Districts, right? So the districts are responsible for doing what? Making sure all the laws are abided by and collecting taxes. The mayors oversee what? Counties, right? So the mayors are collecting taxes on behalf of who? The governors. The governors are collecting taxes on behalf of who? All the kings, the queens, the prime ministers, and the presidents. That's what the governors do of each of the territories, right? And the kings, queens, prime ministers, and presidents do what? They collect taxes on behalf of who? The Sultan. You see that? So when the Moors got naturalized, it was to allow the European states to put the Moors in a protective status to be citizens. That way the United States, as an example, could focus on collecting taxes and govern over Moors as being Americans. They were adopted Americans under the Naturalization Act. Now the United States of America is collecting taxes from everybody and sending the taxes who? Back to the Sultan of Morocco, 1906. You see that? So the Moors now were supposed to be in charge. The Moors, right? The Moors, right here, Moors. The Moors, right? Were supposed to be assisting, right? The Moors were supposed to be assisting the Sultan after 1906. Because the Moors were no longer naturalized citizens of the European states, sections 2 through 5. The Moors were no longer supposed to be naturalized. The Moors were supposed to return to Morocco, right, the Empire of Morocco, and help the Sultan to govern the great enterprise of the Empire of Morocco. But that didn't happen after 1906. Because the Moorish government wasn't woken up by who? It wasn't awakened by who? France, Spain, and who was responsible for helping to wake the Moors up. Plus the Moors themselves wasn't waking up on their own to read law. You see, so listen, I'm going to get a Moor as an example of what jurisdiction looks like. Up here I got the state of Nigeria. I'm going to use Nigeria over in Africa as an example as to what jurisdiction looks like. Okay? Remember I said Sultan oversees kings, prime ministers, and presidents. Right? The Sultan oversees governors. The Sultan oversees mayors. The Sultan oversees district heads of divisions. And the Sultan oversees anyone who got a tribe or a village. The Sultan is the highest status for the Empire of Morocco. But we got to now go from what? A wide understanding of the empire, the international. Let's narrow it down to an internal state, an external state, right? Got an external state where now you have what? You're going to have a prime minister of Nigeria, okay? Prime minister of Nigeria, okay? I know it's getting a little messy, but prime minister of Nigeria, okay, also has internal states, okay? I'm going to flip this board back around again so I can show you what I'm talking about. So give me a second, all right? Watch this. Okay, Moors, here we go. All right, we got our board turned around. All right, so we're going to talk about Nigeria, okay? What does Nigeria represent in terms of an example? Nigeria as a state in Africa represents what? Nigeria is what you call what? A regional, right? A regional state. But Nigeria is not necessarily in Morocco. We're just using Nigeria as an example of what a state looks like from a regional state perspective. That's an external regional state. I'm just using Nigeria as an example. All right, I got to break this down. I'm going to take it wide empire. Now I'm going to make it narrow to show what happens from an external sovereign state. Okay, we're going to use Nigeria as an example. Okay, we're going to show you what happens. Okay, you got the state of Nigeria. Okay, now watch this. State of Nigeria. Here's the state of Nigeria right here. That's the state. Okay, that's the state. All right, hopefully everybody can see that. Okay, so all within the state, you've got territories, but this is blank, as you can see. Let's give an example. Who's the external state? Nigeria. You see that? Nigeria is the external state, but it's a regional state in Africa. But on this example, it's not showing any of its internal states. It's showing the external state. So who's the external state? Nigeria. Who's the internal state? Well, they're not showing it here, right? Okay. However, if you move over here, now it shows you the internal states, right? You got your internal states now, okay? So your internal states are inside of Nigeria, okay? Now Nigeria has 36 internal states, such as like United States of America, right? United States of America, all right, look at the board. United States of America has what? 50 internal states, such as state of Colorado is one of their internal states. So you got an internal state inside of the United States of America's jurisdiction. United States of America is what? A regional state, an external regional state that has 50 internal states, the internal state with inside of it. Nigeria is the same way. Nigeria has 36 states within it. Okay? All right, so let's read a little bit about Nigeria. It's all going to make sense to you. I'm going to make sense of this for you while I'm bringing this up as an example. Okay, from the top.
Nigeria is a federation of 36 states. Each of the 36 states is a semi-autonomous political unit that shares powers with the federal government as enumerated under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Federal Capital Territory is the capital territory of Nigeria, and it is the territory that the capital city of Abuja is located. The FCT is not a state. It is a territory of the federal government, administered by ministers of government appointed by the president, who supervises by the administration of the territory. Each state is subdivided into local government areas, LGAs. There are 774 local governments in Nigeria. Under the Constitution, the 36 states are co-equal but not supreme because sovereignty resides with the federal government. The Constitution can be amended by the National Assembly, but each amendment must be ratified by 2/3 of the 36 states of the Federation.
All right, so from the top, Nigeria is a federation of 36 states, right? So as an image, so Nigeria, right? There's Nigeria, the external state, but within the external state is what? 36, right? 36 other internal states. All right? All right, so right there it says 36 states and the federal capital territory, right? So 36 states, internal states, okay? Going back to the top. So it says Nigeria is a federation of 36 states. Each of the 36 states is a semi-autonomous political unit that shares powers with the federal government of Nigeria as enumerated under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So all the 36 states, right, come under the Constitution, right? They come under the Constitution of the federal external state called the Republic of Nigeria. You see that? And they share power. See right here? They shares power. So these 36 states share powers with the external state called Nigeria. Why are we going over this? Okay. That's a point of interest. Let's go back to Empire Morocco. Okay, Empire Morocco is the external state. International external state. Right? That now it has its own government, executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch. This is what the Moors have to reinstate. We have to emerge as a sovereign independent state and put the government back in place. The government will then oversee what? Internal, right? It'll be a shared power with internal Moorish states such as AMPAC as an example. AMPAC will come under the jurisdiction of the external state, commonly known as the Empire Morocco. You see, that's what we got to understand as Moors. We got to learn government. This was the 1906 Act of Algeciras, was an obligation for the Moors to start to govern again in the Empire Morocco, along with who? The Sultan and the Moorish government, who is now the what? The legislative branch, executive branch, and judicial branch, right? Of the main government, the decentralized government, and within it has internal Moorish states such as AMPAC. AMPAC is one of many internal Moorish states that will be internal within it, same way as Nigeria. Listen. All right? So from the top, Nigeria is a federation of 36 states. Each of the 36 states is semi-autonomous political unit that shares powers with the federal government as enumerated under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So what does the Empire Morocco need? Nigeria is the external state, right? If Nigeria is the external state that has a constitution, the Empire of Morocco also needs what? A constitution. Mm-hmm. The Moors and the Empire of Morocco are in the absence of an Empire Morocco constitution. But once we have that constitution and we put the three branches of government back in place along with the Sultan, we elect a Sultan, which is coming up very soon. Then we put the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch back in place of the Empire Morocco. Then the Empire Morocco, as the external sovereign independent state, will then allow all the internal Moorish state governments, internal, such as AMPAC is an internal Moorish state government, right, under the umbrella of the external sovereign independent state of the Empire of Morocco. You follow me so far? Let's go back to Nigeria. Nigeria. From the top. Nigeria is a federation of 36 states. Each of the 36 states is a semi-autonomous political unit that shares powers with the federal government as enumerated under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Federal Capital Territory is the capital territory of Nigeria, the external state, and it is in this territory the capital city of Abuja is located. The FCT is not a state. It is a territory of the federal government, administered by ministers of government, appointed by the president who supervises the administration of the territory. Each state is subdivided into local government. So each of the 36 states is subdivided into local governments. Listen, local governments areas, there are 774 local governments in Nigeria. Well, wait a minute. Why are they saying there's 774 local governments in Nigeria if there's only 36 states? So there's 36 states. Listen, 36 states within Nigeria. But if you pick a state, let's say like Niger, If you pick Niger, Niger has what? States or counties within it. Right? Okay, let's click on Niger. Watch this. Niger state, okay, is now going to tell you what's Niger all about. Let's pretend Niger is like AMPAC. Right? As an example, Niger is like AMPAC, is an internal state of Nigeria. AMPAC is an internal state of the Empire of Morocco. Right? So let's talk about an internal state, Niger, okay? From the top, your brother.
Niger is a state in the north-central region of Nigeria and the largest state in the country by area. Niger State has 3 political zones, Zone A, B, and C. The state's capital is at Minna. Other major cities are Baida, Kontagora, and Suela. It was formed in 1976 when the then northwestern state was divided into Niger State and Sokoto State. It is home to Ibrahim Babangida and Abdul Salami Abu Bakr, 2 of Nigeria's former military rulers, the Nupe, Gabayi, Kamuku, Kabari, Gangawa, Hansar, Haswa, and Koro from the majority of numerous indigenous tribes of Niger State.
All right, so Niger is a state, such as AMPAC is a state. So Niger is an internal state. AMPAC is an internal state. So Niger is an internal state of what? Nigeria. AMPAC is an internal state of Empire Morocco. Right? So Niger is operating its own government. It says Niger is a state in north central region of Nigeria and is the largest state in the country. What country? Nigeria. Well, by area. Niger State has 3 political zones, Zone A, B, and C. Right? So within it, right, it says the state capital is Amina, other major cities, and Baida. So it has cities within its internal state. You see? Okay, what are cities? Cities are like what? Counties, right? So who oversees an internal state, such as Niger? Niger will have what? Like a governor overseeing several territories within it, right? Okay, let's continue to read. Okay, Morris, I'm going to scroll down. Let's look under government. Government for Niger, okay? All right, I'm listening.
Like most Nigerian states, Niger State is governed by a democratically elected governor who is currently Mohammed Umar Bago. The governor works with the Niger State House of Assembly. The capital city is Minna.
All right, so therefore, Niger has a governor, right? Niger State has a governor. Well, who oversees Niger State as a governor? Who is that? Now we go backwards, right? We go back to Nigeria. So there's Niger, but who oversees Niger? That would be what? Nigeria, right? Nigeria oversees the internal state. But Nigeria also has what? A president, right? So they have a president that oversees all the local governments. And within each of those states within Nigeria, all of them have local counties. That's why I say they had 774 governments. That means within Niger, there's probably about 25 local governments, such as like counties and cities. You see what I'm saying? So why is this important to understand? Okay. So as an example, go back to the empire. The Empire of Morocco is the external state that has its external government. Underneath the Sultan, you have a government. That's like the federal government, so to speak, right? The federal government of the Empire of Morocco oversees all of the internal Moorish state governments, like Niger had internal state governments such as Niger inside of Nigeria. So Nigeria is the external state, Underneath Nigeria was Niger. So in the Empire of Morocco, we got, as an example, AMPAC comes underneath the Empire of Morocco. You see that? This is what Moorish got to understand. We got to start understanding government. We have to put the government back together. Okay? Let's look at the world map again. So on the world map of the Empire of Morocco, extending from the extreme west all the way back over to Europe, right? Africa, you got Morocco, King Morocco, this is the Empire of Morocco, etc. You got India. India was even there in 1906, right? You got all these states. All these states belong to the Empire of Morocco, European states, and all the way to the extreme west as signatory powers. Right? So you go back and look at the signatures on these treaties, and they're telling you they're in the Empire of Morocco. All right? What were we supposed to do as Moors? Under the Act of Algeciras of 1906, okay? Under the Act of Algeciras of 1906 treaty, we were supposed to start to govern the great enterprise as the Moorish government along with the Sultan. But right now, we're in the absence of what? We're in the absence of a constitution for the Empire of Morocco. As you notice, Nigeria said they have a constitution. Then all the internal states have their own similar type of constitution or charter, etc., to come under the parent state. So we as Moors, even though we were naturalized, we were slaves, then we were naturalized by the European states. The Sultan in 1906 turned around and put the Moors back in charge through the Act of Algeciras of 1906, put the Moors back in charge of the Empire of Morocco. But the problem is what? The Sultan stepped down in 1956, March 2nd, 1956, and left the Empire of Morocco void of a central government and no more Sultan. Now it's incumbent upon all the internal states, right? The internal states under Udi Posidatus Juris to come together so we can establish the constitution of the Empire of Morocco, that where we can pledge our allegiance back to the Empire of Morocco as the external sovereign independent state. That way we can start to govern the great enterprise again, because we will be no longer naturalized. As an example, we'll be no longer naturalized as Americans, adopted Americans of the United States. Our job is to return back to the Empire of Morocco, because that's called jurisdiction, because this is the Empire of Morocco. Once you return to the jurisdiction of the Empire of Morocco by pledging your allegiance back to the state. This was the obligation of all Moors to get out of the jurisdiction of the United States and return to the jurisdiction of the Empire of Morocco, because it's in layers. Empire of Morocco, okay, let's take it to the board. It's in layers. What's the first layer? Empire of Morocco. What's the second layer? United States of America. What's the third layer? State of Colorado as an example, right? And then we're dealing with what? Within the state of Colorado as an example, it's got what? Governors and congressmen. It's got mayors that oversee counties and cities, i.e. municipalities. Then underneath the mayors, they got what? Head of districts, right? And then last but not least, you got a bunch of Indian reservations. And the Sultan, the Empire State, so jurisdiction, oversees the jurisdiction of the United States of America. The Empire of Morocco oversees the jurisdiction of the state of Colorado. We're talking jurisdiction, so you don't move, it's in layers. This is the Empire of Morocco, you're looking at it. It's also what? The United States of America. You're looking at it. It's also what? State of Colorado. You're looking at it. It's also what? One of the municipalities or counties of the state of Colorado. You're looking at it. It's one of what? The districts within the United States of America. You're looking at it. So all this is layer on top of layer on top of layer on top of layer of jurisdictions. These are layers of jurisdiction. But right now the Moors are stuck where? Where are the Moors stuck? Right here in the jurisdiction of the United States of America as adopted, naturalized Americans. You are not Americans. You're adopted as Americans. You're not Indians. You were adopted as Indians. You're supposed to return to the Empire of Morocco and start to help the Sultan govern over the Moorish government, i.e. the Makhzen, over the great enterprise of all the European states, such as the United States of America. We're supposed to govern over them and supervise to collect taxes and create new revenues, to control the ports, the trade routes, etc. This was our obligation. So don't be upset with the Sultan. The Sultan was trying to get what? He was trying to get his money. And he recognized the Moors had been ran out of government. He knew the Europeans took over the governments. So the Sultan had to do what? He had to still look out for the great enterprise. He let the Moors get naturalized. And then 26 years later, 1906, he put the Moors back in charge of the Empire of Morocco. Why? Because the Moors are the original royals of the Empire of Morocco, not the Arabs. The Arabs didn't start coming into our territories until the late 600s and the 700s with their dynasties. Everybody already knows that the Moors were the royals of planet Earth. So the Arabs couldn't control the empire no more. They couldn't control the Europeans no more. So you know what the Arabs turned around and said? Put the Moors back in charge. Put the Moors back in charge with the Act of Algeciras of 1906. Put the Moors back in charge of their own homeland so the Moors can start to govern the great enterprise and collect taxes. So the Moors, as I started to close out, Moors, the Sultans did not throw us under the bus. The Sultans had us go from slave back up to naturalized, to be protected citizens, and from protected citizens right back up into the Empire of Morocco to be the Moorish government to oversee the European states. And the only reason why we ended up being slaves in the first place is because we was infighting, which allowed the Europeans to come and take us out of our royal seats, because we wasn't getting along. We fighting over territories and money. The Europeans came together, right? E pluribus unum, right? E pluribus unum, or how they said, and many one, right? So the Europeans came together and they ran all the Moors out of their royal chairs. Arabs came in and more or less settled into the Moorish Empire as well. Now the Arabs in 1906 turned around and said, put the Moors back in charge over these Europeans and all the Empire of Morocco. And since 1906, the Moors have been procrastinating to restore and emerge the Empire of Morocco since 1906. And when the charter came out in 1945, the charter expressed language that the Moors could reestablish the Empire of Morocco, especially after 1956 when the Sultan stepped down and left the entire empire wide open. The state is the Empire of Morocco, and the office of Sultan was left vacant. Now the Moors have to step back into the Empire of Morocco and emerge as a sovereign independent state, sit back in the seat of Sultan, sit back in the Moorish government, and start to govern over the great enterprise. And this the Moors got to take away from class 139 and 140. We were not thrown under the bus by the Sultan. It was just a step-by-step process to get the Moors back into their proper seats of government. So now we have to fulfill that obligation, right? So the question is, if not now, when? And if not you, who? We just got to get started. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Next week, we'll talk about the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco. I end with that. Islam.
Islam.